During July 19, the inHg marked a tropical wave, located between the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico for gradual development over the coming week. The wave drifted generally west-northwest for next few days while producing a large region of disorganized showers and thunderstorms. After entering the Gulf of Mexico, the wave started to gradually organize and become better defined, with an area of low pressure forming on July 22. During the morning hours of July 23, hurricane reconnaissance aircraft flew into the system, and was able to find that a closed circulation had developed, leading to the classification of the system as Tropical Depression 8. At 3 o'clock Coordinated Universal Time the next day, banding features became evident within the newly formed system, and hurricane reconnaissance aircraft data indicated tropical storm force winds inside the nascent storm, leading to the upgrade of the storm to a tropical storm, being named Hanna. Upon the naming of Hanna, the storm became the earliest eighth named storm on record, surpassing Tropical Storm Harvey of 2005 by well over a week. Hanna continued to steadily intensify as it approached Texas, forming a mid-level eye during the afternoon hours of July 24. Hanna continued to steadily strengthen as it moved west towards the southern coast of Texas, and at 6 o'clock Coordinated Universal Time on July 25, Hanna became a hurricane after winds of 75 miles per hour (120 kilometers per hour) were found within the storm. Hanna strengthened further despite its close proximity to land, developing an eye of 30 to 35 nmi on radar and satellite imagery. Reaching a peak intensity of 90 miles per hour (150 kilometers per hour) and a pressure of 973 millibars, the storm made landfall at Padre Island, Texas, at 2200 Coordinated Universal Time. Hanna made a second landfall in Kennedy County, Texas, 15 miles (25 kilometers) north of Port Mansfield, Texas, at 23:15 Coordinated Universal Time. Once inland, Hanna gradually weakened, becoming a tropical storm by 6 o'clock Coordinated Universal Time on July 26. Around 12 o'clock Coordinated Universal Time that same day, Hanna continued to weaken as it moved into northeastern Mexico. Hanna weakened further to tropical depression status while located far into Mexico, and responsibility of advisories was passed to the Weather Prediction Center on July 27. The last advisory by the WPC was later issued that day. Immediately after the disturbance's upgrade to a tropical depression, tropical storm watches were issued for much of the Texas shoreline. Governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, announced that various severe weather resources were placed on standby due to the strengthening storm, including search and rescue teams from Texas A&M Task Force 1 and the Texas Department of Public Safety. The Department of Public Safety also provided aircraft, mainly helicopters, for similar purposes. The state also deployed boat teams from the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department. In Corpus Christi, sandbags were given away as local officials closed beaches due to the threat of rip currents and rough surf. In Clayburgh County and San Patricio County, voluntary evacuations were ordered. Clayburgh County also issued an emergency disaster declaration for the county ahead of the storm. A FEMA dome was opened as a shelter in Kingsville at H.M. King High School. In Guadalupe, Nuevo Leon, a Mexican League soccer match was postponed as a precautionary measure. In Texas, where the storm made landfall, around 194,000 residents in the Rio Grande Valley and surrounding areas lost power due to Hanna. Hanna also dumped several inches of rain, causing widespread flash flooding in the same region, while it also caused downed trees and ripped roofs from homes. Wind gusts reached up to 110 miles per hour (175 kilometers per hour), and storm surge reached as high as 7 feet (2 meters) at landfall. Strong winds damaged entire homes in Port Mansfield as Hanna made landfall nearby. The Bob Hall Pier in Corpus Christi was extensively damaged and eventually collapsed partially due to high winds and storm surge. Art Museum of South Texas's first floor and outdoor exhibits at the Texas State Aquarium were inundated by storm surge from Corpus Christi Bay. Areas affected by Hanna were already struggling due to a surge of COVID-19 cases in the region, and thus supplies remained limited. Several marinas and boats on the coastline were severely damaged. 3 individuals had to be rescued from a sinking sailboat on a marina off the coast. Many streets and highways later became inaccessible for much of July 25 and 26. As Hanna moved further inland and weakened on July 26, the storm unleashed copious amounts of rainfall in South Texas, with rainfall totals reaching up to 15 and 280 mm. Additionally, Hanna's outer bands caused widespread tornado warnings across South Texas. An EF0 tornado briefly touched down and damaged 2 homes and a hangar in Brownsville, South Padre Island International Airport. A tornado watch was then issued later in the day. The cities of Mission and McAllen were also placed under flash flood emergencies due to Hanna's rainbands. Even a day following landfall, much of the areas near the coast in Corpus Christi remained submerged from storm surge and flash flooding. After sheltering for the seasoned tormenta, thousands of AEP crews worked for days to restore power, but were delayed to some areas due to high water, especially in the Rio Grande Valley. Shortly after Hanna, Nueces County Judge Barbara Canales surveyed damage along Padre Island. Insured losses are estimated at $350 million. Due to the extensive damage to property in the southern part of the state, Governor Greg Abbott issued a declaration of disaster for 32 counties affected by the storm. The Federal Emergency Management Agency (FEMA) and President Donald Trump granted a federal emergency declaration request for public assistance. This allows the federal government to provide emergency protective measures, such as federal assistance and reimbursement for mass care, including evacuation and shelter support at 75% federal funding. On July 26, streets in Monterrey were flooded by Hanna after it had been downgraded to a tropical storm. Other parts of the states of Nuevo León, Coahuila, and Tamaulipas were similarly affected. Electrical power was cut in large sections of Monterrey and neighboring areas, while the road linking Monterrey to Reynosa, Tamaulipas, was closed due to flooding. In the city of Matamoros, across the border from Brownsville, Texas, heavy rain and winds damaged tents in a refugee camp housing an estimated 1,300 asylum seekers. Reynosa was one of the most affected cities in Mexico, where 45 neighborhoods were damaged, 2 people were killed, and 200 people were displaced due to Hanna's impact. One of the deaths was caused by drowning in Hanna's floodwaters after the victim suffered a seizure. A maternity hospital was flooded on July 26. An 11-year-old child who fell into an overflowing stream in Monterrey was reported missing, where extensive flooding and fallen trees were reported. A 35-year-old woman and her daughter were killed in Ramos Arizpe, Coahuila. A video showing the collapse of part of the Mexican-United States border wall was widely shared on social media, with the cause attributed to Hanna's high winds. The United States Army Corps of Engineers later clarified that the collapse had occurred over a month earlier, in the state of New Mexico, and was completely unrelated to Hanna. Damage across Nuevo León exceeded 1 billion pesos, $45 million. The precursor disturbance to Hanna dropped heavy rain to parts of Hispaniola, the Florida Keys and Cuba. In Pensacola, Florida, a 33-year-old police deputy was drowned by rip currents while trying to save his 10-year-old son in Sandestin Beach. In portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle, the outer bands of Hanna brought heavy rainfall, even threatening street flooding in New Orleans.